Hello, Justin Tucker again. Welcome to the next video. So the video you just came from, or that precedes this, talks about the basic tools and modules that we're going to use and need in order to kind of pull this off. We're making a convention / membership e-commerce based website using Drupal 7 content management framework. And at this point, we're kind of needing to update some modules. So let me just do that step real quick. And I'm just going to go ahead and do these en masse. If anything explodes, we're just starting out, so shouldn't be too bad. And while this is happening, really the goal of this video is to lay out what Drupal calls content types. In WordPress land, you would call this post types. Effectively, these are going to be forms that you, at least in an administrative way, fill out to produce content on your website. Pretty straightforward. So one of the powerful things of Drupal is out of the box, it gives you the idea of content types that you can begin creating. And in my opinion, when you're kind of modeling out a website or a project, starting with the content types is a very safe first step. Arguably, you could maybe say starting out with taxonomies is where you want to start with, but we'll get to that here in a bit. Some of the content types we're going to talk about is, well, I can kind of just type these out. One will be a product display. Product display is going to be the container of products. This concept is a little confusing, I think, to some when they first get into Drupal Commerce, but you'll see what this allows you to do. It gives you the ability to have product variations. This is also the mechanism that gives you the ability to say, okay, I've got 3 different shirts, or I'm sorry, a shirt that has 3 different sizes and 3 different colors. That's actually a combination of 9 variations. So you'd actually have 9 products go in one product display, and then that will give the mechanics to when you choose large red shirt, you can actually see a different picture of a larger red image of a shirt that they'll be buying. Okay, and we're just kind of finishing up these updates here. Another content type I think we know we're going to need is an event. Now, this type of event is not purchasable, meaning there won't be a ticket for it. This is just an event to show on a calendar. Now, the product display, we may actually create a different one called, well, actually, no, we're going to have a content type for convention or conference. I'm not really sure what we should call this, or to make it really generic, you know, a purchasable event. So whatever we're going to end up calling this, we know this needs to be one form. We know we're going to have something that has to collect products. We know we're going to maybe need to have events that we show on a calendar. A lot of organizations have meetings and minutes, so we might want a form for that. Speakers, sponsors, and vendors, also very common entities that are related to a event. Or a convention or a conference. So these are going to represent, I think, some of the core content types that we'll create in this video. And in this video, we're not going to actually start to configure or add fields to these. We're just going to create the forms, which is probably the easiest thing to do. Now, on the speakers, sponsors, and vendors, I'm a little split because most of the fields will be the same. And if they're the same, then the alternative would be to have some other content type where we add a drop-down selector of these options. So basically, we know we're going to need name. There might be a URL to the speaker's maybe website or to the sponsor's website. Most certainly, probably the same with the vendors. So when we create those forms and those content types, we're going to notice that there's a lot of overlap. Usually, that means create one form and then have some taxonomy or drop down of those items. Well, that's not what I wanted to copy and paste. Have a selector when you fill out this other content type, which I really don't have a good name for right now. There would be one field that says, okay, is this of type speaker, of type sponsor, of type vendor? And then we could use that field to create views and displays that organize that content. So I think in this video I'm probably going to do these as separate things, even though they're going to have mostly the same fields. That should at least give you the ability to break one of these out on its own. If you needed to add a field that only belongs to sponsors and nobody else, you have the infrastructure to do that. Under this method, the alternative method, you're kind of stuck with all those fields. They're always going to share them, and this is just a selector as to which type. So with all that said, I just made up my mind. We'll go ahead and keep these the same. So to get started, we will go to structure and content types and add content type. And the first content type we're going to add is, let's see, what are we going to call this? Let's just call it a registration event. So basically, this is going to be a content type that is set aside for an event that will have registration or registration needs or ticket purchasing type features. I'm going to leave it published. I'm not going to promote it. Display settings, I'm going to turn that off. That's fine, and I'm just going to save it. Again, save and add fields would be the next step, but right now we're just going to add all the content types that we think we need right now. So the other one is going to be product display. Now this may drastically change on us, but we'll make a default product display. Product display is the terminology used in a lot of Drupal Commerce tutorials and documentation to represent this container of products, which we'll get into. And kind of the same stuff, and we'll just save that. And then we're going to make an event, and again, I know there's a little bit of conceptual overlap with the idea of a registration event and an event, but I've come across a lot of clients who had needs to say, no, we need something on the calendar, but it's not necessarily something we sell tickets for. And so that's what this is going to allow us to do, is to be able to show calendar type information, but keep it separate from the special needs and functions of a registration event. Yeah, we'll make meetings and minutes. And again, we're just making the raw shells of the forms. And we know we're going to need speaker, sponsor, and vendor. Okay, and I think that's kind of what we determined was at least needed for right now. Yep, okay. And that looks good. So at this point, again, all we've done is just create the raw shell of the form that we're going to use to add fields. Next step is going to be going into each one of these and adding the fields that relate to an event, primarily the who, what, when, and where type pieces of information. On the registration event, that's going to be a little bit more complicated and involved, as this will actually have fields that reference things like speakers, sponsors, and vendors. And the registration event is also going to represent a node or a page A node is what Drupal basically calls a page, and it's the thing that gets saved to the database and given a unique ID. This node that gets created when you make an instance of a registration event, for example, like 2018 annual conference, a lot of things are going to attach to this in terms of, okay, this speaker belongs to this event this year, this sponsor belongs to this event, but maybe not these vendors, and every combination thereof. So at this point, this would represent the shell forms. I think that you're going to need to pull this off. And in the next video, I think we're going to probably go over some product types and talk about some different types of products that are going to be needed for this type of idea to have a convention/membership e-commerce website. So thanks for watching. Again, if you like these, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or comments, please reach out. Love the communication. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.